All right, what's up? It's week 7. Hopefully, you are still in playoff contention, close to locking up that spot, or hopefully, you're just not out of playoff contention. Let's start off with Chuba Hubbard, and he didn't do that great, to be honest. Rico did much better, but they did do an even split, so I would still hold on to Rico. It seems like Chuba might be recovering from that calf strain still, so I have to see how he performs next week. But if it's the Rico taking twice yards per carry again, they might just shift over to him more so. Brock Bowers, I still think he'll be back around week 9 with that PCL bone bruise, and I think he's going to be a great player for you later on in the season as long as you can afford to hold him, and we'll do well in the playoffs as well. Aside from that, Brian Thomas Jr., I went over my recap video for him about how I think that he had a shoulder subluxation, and I think he'll be out for a couple weeks. Just depends on how his pain level goes. I think they would have told us by now if he had had one of those Bankart or Hill-Sachs lesions. You know, the Hill-Sachs is the humerus, H for H, and then Bankart is breaking off a piece of that glenoid or breaking off a piece of that banking edge. That's how I remember it at least. Pearsall had a low ankle sprain because he returned back, played through it, didn't really seem to have any kind of lingering effects from it. I wouldn't expect him to have any issues playing week 8. Darius Slayton has already missed about 2 games with that hamstring injury. So going into that 3rd week, he should be a candidate to return this week. If you're, thinking about starting him or you're just happen to be a fan of the team. Dalton Kincaid was on bye, but the previous week he had been ruled out last minute with an oblique injury that he had already been practicing through. So I don't see any reason why he doesn't return back to the lineup this week. Jayden Daniels had a hamstring strain. They already did the MRI. They said that there wasn't any significant findings. Prior to this, I would have said that, there's no chance of him coming, but injuries evolve. And so far, I remember high ankle sprains used to be a much longer absence. PCL sprains used to be out for the entire season, and they're slowly improving their return rates. So Jayden Daniels, I still do think he misses this upcoming week, but after that, I think that he should be back. And honestly, he's got an outside shot at playing this upcoming week too. Kmet had a back injury that he got knocked out for. Colson Loveland's a better tight end in that offense, and if Kmet misses any time, Loveland's value shoots straight up. But Kmet's only day to day. I think it's probably back spasm. They're usually able to manage those, so I would think that he can come back. Back injuries are pretty much they come back the same week or they're out for a very long period of time. I usually don't see back injuries that hold players out for a short term absence of like 1 to 2 weeks. Aside from that, Bucky Irving, man, we've talked about this guy so much, but there's still not really any kind of news on his behalf. I've been, saying trade him, but his value each time I say trade him is going even lower. You just got to kind of see what his practice report's saying. I think the earliest he would come back is week 10 after the bye. I don't think we'll see him back before then. Deebo Samuel was ruled out with that heel bruise, and we talked more about how he kind of plays through injuries. I'm happy that he didn't play through it this time. I would think that he has a good shot at coming back this week, but we'll see how the practice report goes. Mike Evans, man, that was really devastating. Very sorry for that guy. He had a concussion. The concussion itself seemed pretty significant. Possibly got knocked unconscious. Can't really confirm that, but based on video, it looked like it. And then he had a clavicle fracture. And those clavicle fractures we talked about are about an 8-week absence. So fantasy purposes, I don't really think he'll be relevant. Yeah, he can come back for the fantasy playoffs, but are you really trusting him in your lineup? Coming back after basically being off the entire season would be hard. It shouldn't be a long-term career thing, though. People are talking about his career-ending. Clavicle fractures, they're pretty repairable, and he doesn't have a history of concussions. So if he wants to come back, I think he'll be able to come back, and I think he'll be back later on this season in the playoff run for the Bucs. Aside from that, Josh Downs had a concussion. We talked about late last week how he basically wouldn't be able to suit up. It was just too late. Too late. He ended up being ruled out, and I do think he's got a shot at coming back this week, though. Joe Mixon, talked about him ad nauseum. He's got this midfoot injury. It seems like a non-football injury. Neither team's not talking about it. He's not talking about it. There's no timetable for his return. Not someone I'm keeping on my IR. Chris Godwin, it's changed a little bit. I still am not very high on his fantasy production, but there's only so many people to throw passes to. So you can keep him on your IR just in the thought that, there's Egbuka and there's him. And then there's Ted Johnson. So, he could possibly provide you some back-end flex value. But once again, he's got an aggravation of this fibula in the same ankle that was dislocated. And he's got a really hard recovery to production. He wasn't really productive before the injury to this fibula, this whatever new injury was. So I don't know, a little bit more positive on Godwin, but not that much. Nico got a concussion, and he's got a short week because it happened on Monday. 5-day turnaround period, usually one step for each day of that concussion protocol. Doesn't really have a huge history of concussions, so I think he's got a 50% chance of suiting up this week. Christian Watson should be back week 8, week 9. He's someone that I like to have in my IR slot. Basically, he was like among the top players I wanted in my IR slot, so see how it performs. And yeah, I mean, he can be a starter for you. Kyler Murray's supposed to be back after the bye. They said he had a Lisfranc injury specifically, and Lisfranc injuries are not great, so I'm kind of surprised that he's coming back even this season. I would expect him to be pretty limited rushing wise, so I would not be looking at him to be starting in my lineup. Aside from that, Bryce Young has a high ankle sprain. He missed, got ruled out. I think he's going to be ruled out this week, and then 50% chance to come back next week, and then should be back by the week after that. Aside from that, Ricky Pearsall has been continuously ruled out. It seems like that PCL sprain is keeping him out. Once he's back, I would trust him in my lineup, but it's kind of hard when he'll be back. I would say he should be back this week or next week. Sorry, I don't have more info on that. Kittle, don't lose hope. He's deconditioned. He's a little bit older. He had a hamstring injury. He should be back to form. Unfortunately, he got 0 points last week, but I think he's just getting acclimated. Egbuka did well. I'm not going to lie. I didn't think he had a chance to come back. He only put up 10 points, but he was targeted 12 times. He dropped, not dropped. He just couldn't grab a couple touchdown passes. Could have been a much different week for him. Now with Evans out, he's bona fide wide receiver 1. I'm excited to see what he does for the rest of the season. High trade value. If you do trade him away, you better be getting 2 high end. You better be getting like 2 starters or 1 super high end player. Brock Purdy has this really aggravating turf toe. I would expect him kind of be out this week, but he's close to return. And once he's back, the 49ers are doing well with all these injuries. It's kind of crazy. Good for them. Omarion Hampton, I've been talking about how I would probably try and trade him if anyone's giving you any kind of decent trade offers, just because I think he low-key may have fractured that fibula, and that's kind of why they're shopping around for another running back. That's my thoughts there. Njoku, I think he probably misses this week too. We talked about the hyperextension injury that he had. Initially, they said he might play this week, but it didn't look like it from the injury video. I do think he should come back after this week's absence, though. Lamar Jackson should be back this week and should be a starter right away. Hamstrings recover well. He's been on track. No signs of any kind of setback. He should be good. Trey Bensen should be back around week 11, week 12 with that meniscectomy. Shouldn't show any sign of performance issues. And I think he's going to be providing you back end RB1, high end RB2 numbers. So I would definitely keep him on my IR slot if you are considering that. Calvin Ridley, week 11, should be returning after that week 10 bye, I would say, with a hamstring injury. His age, not great for early returns for hamstring, so I wouldn't think he'd be one of those earlier end candidates. Puka Nacua, I think he should be back fine week 9, and he had, I think, a very mild high ankle sprain and should be good to go after the bye this week. Terry McLaurin, I've been saying he's got some sort of core injury. He isn't practicing at all. I don't know. I think, he got evaluated for surgery. He's playing through it. Never really a great time for production. Garrett Wilson had a hyperextension injury. We've talked before about bone bruise, PCL, kind of those kind of issues. He should be better with Tyrod Taylor. So week 10 is my projection for Garrett Wilson. And that's it. That's the rundown. We got through them a little bit quicker because there wasn't quite as many this week. Good luck, guys. Forgot about Waller, by the way. Waller had a pec injury. If it was a tendon injury, it would be 4 to 6 weeks. If it was a complete tendon injury, he would be out for the season. They said that he's week to week. That means that it's likely a pec strain. Should be back in 2 weeks, I would say.